Welcome to Co-Pilot Podcasts. Imagine waking up one morning to find out your family home of 3 generations will be demolished to make way for luxury apartments. Today, we're diving into Colombo's massive urban transformation project that's reshaping not just the city's skyline, but the lives of thousands of families.
And it's not just a few families we're talking about here. According to the Urban Development Authority, this affects around 68,000 families who currently reside on just 9% of Colombo's land.
Wait, 68,000 families? That's an enormous number of people being impacted.
Exactly. And what's particularly striking is that these families represent the majority of Colombo's core population, the urban poor, who've been essentially excluded from the city's development vision of becoming a world-class city.
So what exactly is happening to these families?
Well, under the Urban Regeneration Program, or URP, which began in 2010, these families are being relocated to high-rise apartments, often far from their original communities.
And how's that working out for them?
Not well. Let me share a quote from a resident named Rani, who was relocated to Muwadora Uyana in 2015. She said, "They gave us the keys to these apartments but locked us permanently in poverty."
That's pretty powerful. What did she mean by that?
In her previous home in Appalwate, she paid no fees. But after relocation, nearly half her earnings went to paying various fees to the Urban Development Authority just to receive a deed to her apartment.
You know, this reminds me of something interesting. There was actually a completely different approach to housing in Sri Lanka's past, wasn't there?
Yes, the Million Houses program from 1983 to 1995. It's fascinating because it took a completely opposite approach to what we're seeing today.
How so?
The Million Houses program was based on the principle of housing by the people. It empowered communities to participate in the design and construction of their own homes, rather than forcing them into a one-size-fits-all solution.
That sounds much more collaborative.
It was. And here's what's really interesting. It was actually initiated by President Premadasa, who himself was born in Keselwata, a low-income settlement in central Colombo.
So he had first-hand experience with these issues.
Exactly. And the program was remarkably successful. It provided loan finance to low-income households in both urban and rural areas, allowing them to improve their houses once the community had agreed on a development program.
Let's talk about the current situation. How much is this urban regeneration program actually costing?
According to the Colombo Urban Lab's report, by 2018, the government had invested 60 billion rupees, or about $447 million in the URP.
That's a significant amount.
And that's not all. They also issued a public debenture of 10 billion rupees, about $88.5 million to finance the initial phase.
So what's the total cost looking like?
By 2018, the project had cost twice as much as the Matala International Airport and 4 times the cost of the Lotus Tower.
And they're still building more?
Yes, the UDA is continuing to build these high-rise complexes with a $200 million loan from the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank.
Let's talk about the impact on communities. What happens when people are moved to these high-rises?
According to recent surveys, there's been a significant diminishment in quality of life. The urban poor are uniquely vulnerable to shocks and crises.
Can you give us an example?
During the COVID-19 lockdowns and the subsequent economic crisis, these communities were disproportionately affected. The increases in value-added tax and utility tariffs have severely impacted households.
So they're basically trapped in a cycle of increasing costs?
Exactly. Many households are now having to compromise on essential needs just to keep up with these new expenses.
You mentioned earlier this was all part of making Colombo a world-class city. What exactly does that mean?
This vision was articulated by former Secretary of Defense and Urban Development, Gotabaya Rajapaksa, in 2012. It essentially meant transforming Colombo into a uniform cityscape of apartment blocks, public transport, and green spaces.
But at what cost to the existing communities?
That's the key question. To realize this vision, the urban poor, who are largely employed in the informal sector and housed in ad hoc settlements, had to be removed from their lands.
Do they have any other options?
Unfortunately, no. Land is too overpriced to buy, and property developers have focused solely on a rental market for the upper and middle classes.
So they're essentially stuck in what some are calling vertical slums?
Yes, and they've been hit by crisis after crisis. First the pandemic, then the economic crisis, and finally the austerity stipulated by the IMF.
Let's talk about the communities themselves. What's the history of these settlements?
Take Compana Vedia, for example. It's one of the oldest working-class neighborhoods in Colombo, with a history dating back to Dutch colonial rule.
So these aren't just recent informal settlements?
Not at all. Many of these communities have deep historical roots. But there's this neoliberal capitalist logic that says urban land in central Colombo is too valuable to be occupied by low-income communities.
And what's happening to this liberated land?
It's being used for profitable development projects, luxury real estate, office towers, shopping complexes, and tourist attractions.
Are there any efforts to find alternative solutions?
Yes, actually. Recent workshops conducted by researchers with these communities have been exploring different approaches. In July and August 2024, they held sessions titled, "Colombo is my dream city, my home, our village, our city."
What came out of these workshops?
They worked with 95 community members aged between 15 and 82 years to build a community manifesto on housing and urban planning.
That sounds like a return to the community-focused approach of the Million Houses program.
Exactly. The workshops focused on reimagining Colombo as an inclusive city rather than accepting forced evictions as inevitable.
How many people are we talking about in total?
According to the Urban Development Authority's 2011 estimate, there are around 68,812 households in Colombo located in 1,499 underserved areas, constituting almost half the city's population, 51%.
That's a staggering percentage.
And it reflects that policymakers haven't properly recognized the emerging housing needs in relation to the urbanization process.
What are some of the specific challenges these relocated families face?
The issues range from lack of space to the complete disruption of their social networks and livelihoods. Many of these families had businesses or jobs near their original homes.
So it's not just about housing, it's about an entire way of life.
Precisely. And what's particularly concerning is that there's been very little study of the socioeconomic impact and environmental cost of these projects.
As we wrap up, what's the key takeaway about Colombo's urban transformation?
The key issue is that we've moved from a model of housing by the people to one of housing despite the people. The human cost of this transformation is enormous and largely hidden.
And what about the future?
The sustainability of these projects is still in question. Issues of equity, rights of the poor, and future sustainability remain unresolved.
It seems like we're at a crossroads between development and displacement.
Exactly. And until we find a way to make development truly inclusive, we risk creating a city that works for some while excluding the very people who built it.
Well, that brings us to the end of today's episode of Co-Pilot Podcasts. Remember, behind every skyline is a human story, and Colombo's transformation is writing thousands of them right now. Thanks for listening.